Welcome to the Think Like a CFO podcast, where we dig into not only what it takes to start a business, but to keep your business thriving for years to come using my signature CFO Money Method framework. I'm your host, Melissa Houston, and I am a CPA and business financial coach. I have over 20 years of experience in business, and it is my passion to share my knowledge of business finance and personal finance with other women. You can also follow me with my column at Forbes.com or my column with Entrepreneur.com. Hello, and welcome to the Think Like a CFO podcast, where today it's just me and you, my friend. Yep, and we are going deep and we're talking about a question that I get asked a lot, and that is, how do I find the right bookkeeper for my business? This is a hot topic, and I have had many clients approach me to get clarity on what a bookkeeper should be doing for their business. So I decided to devote an entire episode to this topic in an effort to help make your life a lot easier. Believe me, having a good relationship and having a really good bookkeeper in your business, it is invaluable. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what a bookkeeper is and some reasons why you would want to use one and what a bookkeeper can do for you. Bookkeeping errors can be extremely costly, so I highly recommend not cheaping out and investing in a good bookkeeper. When you take your books to your tax accountant at the end of the year to get your business taxes completed, if you're handing in a set of records that are recorded inaccurately, what happens is your tax accountant has to take the time to, first of all, correct the errors. And believe me, it takes way more time to correct errors than it does to actually input things right the first time. And don't forget that they're being charged at a way higher rate than what you pay your bookkeeper. What ends up happening is if you've cheaped out and you've hired a bookkeeper that is basically not doing a very good job, your bill with your accountant is going to be way higher than what you would have paid if you had just paid a good bookkeeper to begin with. And I've seen this so many times. Believe me when I say it is worth investing in a good bookkeeper, because that saves you a lot of money in the long run. And every accountant's nightmare is getting these books. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've worked on companies' books and there's been mistakes and you have to figure out what the bookkeeper has done. It's so frustrating and it's very time consuming. So take my advice. When you start your business, you know you have to start dealing with numbers right away. So every business, no matter how big or small, needs to keep a record of its every transaction. All the sales that are coming in your business and all the expenses going out and salary payments and payments to suppliers. Every single movement of money in your business needs to be recorded. This is what I call the audit trail, or what we call the audit trail. And this is important to have a good audit trail, because if you're ever audited, like say, for example, the government decides to come in and audit your books, it is very good to have a good audit trail, a good set of books. It's a good idea to hire a bookkeeper, and it can be an essential part of doing business. A bookkeeper is the first line of a company's finance team. So the bookkeeper handles everything from maintaining your chart of accounts to completing every journal entry that you have going in and out every month. And they can also produce the financial reports for you. If you're just starting out in business, you might think that you don't need someone to look after your books. Perhaps you feel like it's enough to let your accountant sort out your numbers once a quarter or once a year. But there are really good reasons for hiring a bookkeeper. And you've probably heard me say this before. You need to know your numbers. You can't run a business for a year and never look at your numbers. You need to know them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. A good bookkeeper saves you time because they're spending their zone of genius entering all these receipts and sales invoices and stuff. And you can spend your time more wisely doing on things that bring more important stuff in, like revenue. The bookkeeper has the basic knowledge of understanding how your transactions should be recorded in your books, going by the generally accepted accounting principles, which we also call GAAP. And when you hire a good bookkeeper who understands how your industry record things in your business, such as like, let's say it's a construction company that you own, and you need a good bookkeeper that understands how to record different transactions for construction companies, because it's very different from recording transactions for a service-based company such as maybe psychologist services or physiotherapy services or whatever. So it's very different. And you need to make sure that your bookkeeper understands the industry in which your business operates. If you decide to do the bookkeeping yourself, if you have a good knowledge of bookkeeping, that's great, but I highly suggest you outsource this, especially if you're a growing business, because really it doesn't cost a whole lot to get a good bookkeeper to do your books for you, and it becomes very routine and it keeps you free to grow your business. So hiring a bookkeeper is like hiring any other professional. First, you need to understand your own requirements. Only then can you identify people who will suit the role of the bookkeeper. These are questions to consider before you even start interviewing a bookkeeper is, like I mentioned earlier, think about what type of business that you run. So if you have a manufacturing business, they have different bookkeeping requirements to service than maybe retail companies. So make sure that the bookkeeper is understanding of your business industry. Also consider how many transactions go in and out of your business on a daily, monthly, or quarterly basis. If you're operating a really small business and you don't have much going on, you probably can do your books yourself and get away with it. But if you've got consistent transactions going in and out, and it's a lot to handle, a bookkeeper is definitely worth your investment. Also consider which accounting software you use. I know there's a ton of accounting softwares out there. Personally, I'm a big fan of QuickBooks because QuickBooks offers different stages of your business. So if you're a basic stage business, it's going to offer a package that's cheaper than when your business grows. And as far as I know, QuickBooks is the best because it gives you the option of having your budgets in your accounting program. And when you become a bigger business and you're measuring your progress against your budget, that is super helpful to have in your financial system. So QuickBooks is personally my recommendation, and I like to use it a lot. And that is an unpaid advertisement for QuickBooks because I don't have an affiliate link. Also consider if you require credit control, payroll services, debt collection services, anything that is special needs for your business. Some bookkeeping companies can handle chasing up the money that customers owe to you. They will charge you a premium for that service, but consider special services that you would need, that you would want to be covered under your bookkeeping agreement. And then you should also consider what your key dates are. So you decide when you want to submit your books and how quickly you want your bookkeeper to return your books completed. Your key dates are going to include payroll dates, tax return deadlines, and you'll want to have scheduled meetings with your accountant, so make sure that your books are returned by then. A key date also revolves around business performance reports. So if you want the bookkeeper to produce these reports, you make sure that it's in your contract for your agreement. So my top tips for finding a bookkeeper, there's a lot of bookkeeping services out there, but these tips are going to help you narrow down your choices. So think about whether you want to use a self-employed bookkeeper versus using a bookkeeping firm. Bookkeepers often work independently, so they may have several clients at a time, or you may want to use a firm who has, several bookkeepers on staff. There's no right or wrong approach here. It just depends on the size and your personal needs of your business. The location also might count for you. You need to decide if that's important to you or not. But with online accounting software, and they have online spaces where you can just upload your receipts and everything is so electronic, location may not necessarily matter to you, especially during COVID right now. We want to minimize personal contact with people. So just ensure that whether you're doing your bookkeeping arrangement with your bookkeeper online or in person, just make sure that they know what you need for your bookkeeping rules. Like, so if you're operating in your province or state and your country, you need to make sure that they know exactly what you need to, generate your tax remittances and stuff like that. So when you want to find a good bookkeeper, you need to make use of your social networks. this I can't underestimate enough, because it is way better to find a bookkeeper that's been referred to you. If you have friends that are in business and they have a really good bookkeeper that they want to recommend, take them up on that offer, because believe me when I say a bookkeeper is hard to find. A good bookkeeper is super hard to find. They're so hard to find, in fact, that I have a hard time finding them myself. I like to try to refer bookkeepers to people, but I've actually established an in-house bookkeeper for my own needs and for my VIP clients so that I have the good bookkeeper to use consistently. So you can also look for certifications or memberships. I don't think that's highly necessary, but it may offer you a level of assurance that the bookkeeper knows what they're doing. So I know that there's some bookkeeping certifications out there. I just don't know exactly what they are. For me, the experience and the referrals are way more important than the certifications. So look for somebody who's got experience. And as I mentioned, experience in the line of business or industry that you serve, and make sure that they have been doing this for a few years at least and established their business, because if they're solo starting out and they've only been doing it for a couple of months, this could just be a quick way for them to make some money, and that is always a red flag. And finally, you want to choose the right person. So talk to as many people as you need. Interview them twice if it's necessary. Be sure to check their references and their qualifications, but it's also important to consider their personality. So if you've chosen a bookkeeper that you'll be communicating with a lot, you'll want to make sure that you've got a really good rapport with them. It pays to hire somebody that works well in your environment. So it's super important to trust your instincts when you're interviewing and hire someone who's friendly and helpful and keen. So another thing that you may want to consider is the scope of the bookkeeping work that you want done. This may sound simple, but there's actually a big variation between the services that bookkeepers offer. Your requirements will also vary depending on your own skills and the scope of the work that your accountant completes. So it depends on your setup. Some bookkeepers act as management accountants and can interpret the financials for you, and some don't. So it just depends. So consider what you need done. First of all, you may need to consider hiring somebody who reconciles your bank accounts. It would depend on how many bank accounts that you have and how often you want your bank accounts reconciled. At the minimum, you want your bank account reconciled every month. So consider the volume of bills that are coming in and the sales invoices. And if you want them to follow up with customers who haven't paid bills yet, you want to ensure that they're coding the transactions correctly. And this again goes back to the generally accepted accounting principles that they have to follow. You want to make sure that they can file your sales tax for you, and they can prepare maybe your profit and loss statements or your balance sheets. Maybe you want them to help prepare your budget monitoring reports. Just really consider what it is that you want your bookkeeper to do for you. And then you can come up with a bookkeeping package deal. Like, for example, for my VIP clients, I do the full in-house service. So I have a bookkeeper who does all the bookkeeping, but they're employed with me. So basically my VIP clients give me all their stuff electronically. So, we've got a place to store all the receipts and sales invoices. And then I have a bookkeeper who enters all of that. I review everything. I make sure that all the sales tax and tax remittances and stuff are done in a timely manner. So I'm cognizant of their deadlines and I make sure they're done properly. Depending on the client, depending on how busy they are, we either review their books on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So I also provide the service of making sure that their operating budgets are done for the year, and then we monitor their progress against their budgets on a monthly basis. I do all their accounting and I give them all their accounting advice, but the key is to be a VIP client with me. You need to have worked with me through my program first, because I want you to know your numbers. Every piece of advice that I give my clients, they understand what I'm telling them because they've been through my program, and they understand that the responsibility of their decisions are put on them, not me. So you may want to make an arrangement such as that with your bookkeeper. If your bookkeeper is going to be communicating with your clients about outstanding bills and stuff, you want to make sure that they are communicating with your clients in a very respectful manner. You also want to be very clear on what you expect for turnaround delivery times and response times. All too often, let's take January, for example, okay? So January ends on January 31st. If you have all the stuff that you need to input for January ready, you send it to your bookkeeper. Probably takes you a couple of days after the month closes before you get everything, especially your bank statement. It's a little slower, but everything's online now, so that shouldn't really matter. So make sure that you've agreed to like a 7-day or a 14-day turnaround so that they can turn around those books rather timely, and you've got the information of January by mid-February so you can see how January performed. So if there's any issues that are arising, you know by the end of February you can turn that around and make sure that you're not leaking any money out of your business that you shouldn't be. So I'm a huge advocate for getting those books back very quickly and being on top of your financials, reviewing that information and knowing how your business stands financially in order to keep going. The earlier you get this information, the better decisions that you'll be able to make for your business. I highly encourage that you ensure that your bookkeeper is returning these books in a timely manner, and if they're not, you may want to reconsider who you're getting to do your books. A very important thing that you need to consider when you're hiring a bookkeeper is you need to understand how that bookkeeper protects you as a client. You are sharing your financial information with them, so you need to feel like you can trust them. And you will probably get a feel for this during the initial interviewing scoping process. You want to ask them how they provide assurance in the confidentiality agreement. Like if they have a confidentiality agreement that they're bound to, that's a good sign. If they don't have one, you may want to look other places because you want to make sure that you've got the assurance that your bookkeeper is not sharing your financial information with anybody. And then the final thing I can think of is the pricing of their services. You know, you wonder how a bookkeeper is going to charge you, and you want to know if there's a fixed monthly fee or if they charge you by the hour. The trend seems to be right now that they charge a fixed rate. So if this is the case, make sure you are clear about what it is and what is not included in that price. So final thoughts before we close up is, I really want you to think about the expertise of this bookkeeper. Equally as important is the relationship that you're going to have with this person, because you're going to be dealing with them most likely on a monthly basis. So it's important that they're reliable and they're professional and they're pleasant to deal with. That pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about for finding a good bookkeeper. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. If you ever have any ideas or suggestions that you'd like me to cover on these episodes, I would love to hear from you. Even if you want to pop in my mailbox and say hi, you can reach me at info@melissahoustoncpa.com. Thanks for listening to the Think Like a CFO podcast with Melissa Houston CPA. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review. Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would love it. Until next time, I'm Melissa Houston, and remember, nobody will ever care about your business as much as you do. So never give your financial power away.